The wind moved slowly through the ruins of Kareth, carrying dust, fragments of burnt metal, and the distant humming echo of orbital engines somewhere high above the clouds. Marcus stepped over a collapsed beam and adjusted the strap of the medical pack hanging against his shoulder. The pack was heavy, filled with instruments scavenged from abandoned field stations, but he preferred that weight to the far heavier equipment he used to carry months ago. A rifle was simple. A medical scanner required patience. He paused near a shattered wall and activated a small handheld sensor. The device blinked quietly, projecting faint blue lines across the broken street as it searched for biological signals. Most days it found nothing except rodents or the occasional injured scavenger animal. The war had driven most living things away from this district. Marcus tapped the side of the scanner. "Come on," he muttered. "You found a breathing cactus last week. Don't fail me now." The scanner beeped once. Marcus froze. That tone meant a humanoid life form. He frowned and studied the display again. The signal was weak but definitely alive, coming from somewhere behind the collapsed structure ahead. Marcus crouched slightly and moved forward carefully, stepping over broken stone and twisted metal. His first thought was simple: survivor. His second thought was less comfortable: soldier. And soldiers, on this planet, tended to shoot first. Marcus slipped around the edge of the ruined building and stopped. There, half hidden between shattered slabs of stone, was a woman. At least she looked like one at first glance. Her armor was cracked open across the shoulder and side. Dark blue metal scorched from plasma fire. Blood, dark and almost silver in color, stained the ground beneath her. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, but the detail that confirmed everything was her ears. Long, elegant, alien. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Of course," he murmured. "Why not? My day was going too smoothly." The woman's eyes opened. They were sharp despite the exhaustion. Instinctively, her hand moved toward the weapon resting beside her, but her arm trembled before she could reach it. Marcus recognized the insignia on her armor immediately. Commander rank, Varelian military. He raised both hands slowly. "Relax," he said calmly. "If I wanted to kill you, I would have done it while you were unconscious. Much less paperwork that way." The alien woman studied him carefully. Her gaze moved over his worn armor, the missing military insignia, the medical pack. Her voice came out weak but controlled. "Human. Soldier." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Former soldier," he corrected. "I quit. Bad management." Her eyes narrowed slightly, but the effort clearly drained her remaining strength. She leaned back against the rubble, breathing harder. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence carried the weight of a war that had burned across 3 systems. Finally, she spoke again. "You should finish it." Marcus blinked. "Finish what?" "My execution." He stared at her for several seconds. Then he scratched the back of his head. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "most people start conversations with, 'Hello.' This is a very intense opening." She did not react. Marcus sighed quietly and crouched down beside her. He carefully nudged the weapon away from her reach with his boot. "Relax," he said. "I'm not here to execute anybody." Her eyes remained fixed on him. "Then why approach?" Marcus considered that question. Then he extended his hand toward her. "Come with me." The words clearly confused her. Her expression shifted slightly as if she had misheard. "Capture?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "No." "Interrogation?" "Nope." She studied his face again, searching for deception. Marcus shrugged. "Look," he said, "you're bleeding on a historical ruin and ruining the aesthetic. I have a medical shelter nearby. I can patch that shoulder before it becomes your obituary." Her breathing grew uneven again as pain flared through her side. Marcus watched quietly. Then he added, "Also, if you die here, I'll feel morally responsible, and I hate paperwork." A faint crease appeared on her forehead. It might have been confusion or disbelief. Finally, she spoke again, quieter this time. "You would help an enemy." Marcus stood and offered his hand again. "Technically," he said, "I help bleeding idiots regardless of their political affiliation." For several seconds, she didn't move. Then slowly, painfully, she lifted her arm. Her hand trembled as it reached toward his. Marcus grasped it firmly and helped pull her to her feet. She nearly collapsed immediately. Marcus caught her. "Yep," he muttered. "Definitely the medical shelter option." They began moving slowly through the ruins. After several steps, she spoke again. "You are foolish," Marcus chuckled. "Oh, absolutely. My commanding officer said the same thing before I left." She looked at him again. "You deserted." Marcus nodded casually. "Best career decision I ever made." The alien commander watched him in silence as they moved through the broken city. For the first time since she had fallen in battle, uncertainty replaced the quiet expectation of death. And somewhere in the ruins of Kareth, two enemies walked slowly toward a place neither of them had expected to find. A human shelter, and perhaps something even stranger, a choice. Marcus slowed his pace as the shattered streets narrowed into the skeleton of what had once been a transit plaza. The tall structures around them leaned inward like tired giants, their glass skins long since melted by orbital fire. Somewhere above the ruined skyline, a reconnaissance satellite drifted silently across the clouds, its scanning beams faintly visible in the dusty air. Shiva noticed Marcus glance upward. "Human surveillance?" she asked quietly. Marcus nodded. "Probably. They like to check if the planet has stopped being destroyed yet." Her steps faltered slightly. Marcus tightened his grip around her arm before she could collapse again. "Easy," he said. "You're losing blood faster than my scanner predicted." "I am aware," she replied dryly. "That's comforting." They continued forward until Marcus stopped beside a collapsed piece of roadway that had fallen into what looked like a dark crater. Except it wasn't a crater. It was an entrance. Marcus knelt and brushed away a layer of dust, revealing a small panel embedded into the broken concrete. He tapped it twice. The ground hummed softly. A hidden metal door slid open beneath the rubble. Shiva blinked slowly. "You live in a hole." Marcus gestured downward. "Technically, it's a repurposed underground transit hub. But yes, a very sophisticated hole." He guided her carefully down the short ramp into the darkness. Motion lights flickered on automatically, revealing a narrow corridor reinforced with salvaged metal plating. The air inside was cooler, cleaner. A faint mechanical hum filled the shelter. Shiva studied the surroundings carefully as they moved deeper inside. Medical equipment lined the walls. Portable scanners, fabrication units, storage crates marked with both human and alien medical symbols. She spoke slowly. "This is not military." Marcus snorted. "Oh, definitely not. Military bases are cleaner and have worse coffee." He led her into the main chamber. The room was large, built around what had once been a passenger platform. Marcus had converted it into a strange hybrid between a clinic and a living space. A surgical table stood in the center beneath bright white lights. Several mismatched chairs surrounded a metal table covered with tools and data pads. Shiva noticed something odd. There were multiple beds, more than one patient space. "You expect more wounded," she said. Marcus shrugged. "Hope for fewer. Prepare for more." He helped her sit on the surgical table. She winced as her injured shoulder shifted. Marcus immediately activated a scanning wand and passed it slowly over her torso. A faint holographic outline of her body appeared above the table. The scanner beeped. Marcus leaned closer to the display. "Well," he said thoughtfully, "good news and bad news." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Explain." "Good news, your heart and lungs are functioning. Bad news, your armor took most of the blast and the rest went into your shoulder." He tapped the side of the scanner. "Also, alien bone structure is incredibly inconvenient." "You complain while treating me." Marcus pulled open a drawer filled with surgical tools. "Complaining improves my focus." She watched him quietly as he prepared the instruments. "You could still kill me," she said. Marcus paused mid-motion. Then he looked at her. "You're very committed to that theory." "It is logical." Marcus sighed. "Commander." Her eyes sharpened. "You know my rank." Marcus pointed at the insignia on her cracked armor. "I used to read battlefield reports. Recognizing high-ranking enemies was part of the job description." He activated a surgical light. "Now my job description mostly involves stopping people from leaking vital fluids." He picked up a cutting tool and gestured toward her armor. "This part might sting." She did not move. Marcus carefully sliced through the damaged section of the armor, peeling it away piece by piece. Beneath it, the wound was deep, plasma burned and bleeding. Marcus whistled softly. Yeah, that would ruin anyone's afternoon. He sprayed the wound with a sterilizing foam. Shiva's body tensed. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You fought an entire human platoon, but disinfectant bothers you? It burns. It's supposed to. That means it's working. She studied his face carefully while he worked. You show no fear. Marcus shrugged. Oh, I'm terrified. Her eyes narrowed again. You do not appear terrified. That's because I'm concentrating very hard on not messing up alien anatomy. He sealed part of the wound with a medical gel patch and activated a small healing emitter. Soft blue light spread across the injury. For the first time since the battlefield, Shiva's breathing began to slow. The pain was fading. She looked at him again. You deserted your army. Marcus nodded casually. Correct. Why? Marcus leaned back slightly. For the same reason you're here instead of still fighting. She frowned. I was defeated. Marcus shook his head. No. He gestured toward the entrance of the shelter. You were dying. Then he met her eyes. Those are very different things. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, she said quietly, You help both sides. Marcus leaned against the table and crossed his arms. Bleeding people all look the same when they're unconscious. A faint silence settled between them. Then Marcus glanced toward a small screen on the wall. The scanner above the surface had just pinged again. He frowned. Well, he muttered. What now? Shiva asked. Marcus sighed. Looks like the universe decided today wasn't complicated enough. He pointed toward the screen. Another lifeform signal had appeared above the ruins, and it was heading straight toward the shelter. Marcus stared at the small monitor mounted on the wall while the surface scanner repeated its quiet ping. One lifeform, humanoid, moving slowly. Marcus scratched the side of his jaw. Well, he said, that's either another wounded person or someone about to shoot at my front door. Shiva watched the display from the surgical table, her posture slightly straighter now that the worst of the pain had faded. You seem calm, she said. Marcus tilted his head. Calm is my default panic setting. The scanner blinked again. The signal crept closer to the entrance above. Marcus walked toward a storage rack and pulled out a compact rifle. He checked the power cell, then leaned it against the wall beside him. Shiva noticed the movement immediately. You said you do not fight. Marcus nodded. I don't. He gestured toward the rifle. That's just insurance. Like a fire extinguisher, except slightly louder. Shiva's long ears shifted subtly as she listened to the faint sounds filtering down from the surface. Footsteps, slow, uneven. Marcus heard them too. He sighed. That's not the walking pattern of someone looking for trouble. How do you know? Marcus shrugged. Experience. Soldiers move differently when they're about to ruin someone's day. He stepped toward the entrance corridor. Stay here. Shiva frowned. You trust the intruder? Marcus paused. Trust is a strong word. Then he added, but people who walk like that are usually bleeding. He climbed the short ramp toward the surface door. The mechanism hummed as it opened slightly, just enough for Marcus to peer outside. The ruined plaza looked exactly as it had 20 minutes earlier. Silent, broken, dusty. Except now a figure staggered across the debris. A Varelian soldier, young, barely standing. Marcus muttered under his breath. Of course. He stepped outside. The alien soldier froze instantly when he saw the human standing there. Fear flashed across the young warrior's face. His weapon lifted halfway. Marcus raised both hands. Easy, he said. The soldier stared at him. You are human. Marcus nodded. Very observant. The soldier swayed slightly, clearly exhausted. Marcus glanced at the wound across the soldier's leg. Plasma burn. Deep. You planning to shoot me? Marcus asked. Or are we both going to acknowledge that you're about 5 minutes away from collapsing? The soldier hesitated. Marcus waited patiently. Finally, the weapon lowered. The soldier's voice came out strained. I need medical aid. Marcus nodded. Well, you're in luck. I run the worst clinic on this side of the galaxy. The soldier blinked. What? Marcus gestured toward the entrance. Come on. The soldier limped forward cautiously. When he stepped inside the underground chamber, his eyes immediately locked onto the figure sitting on the surgical table. Commander Shiva. The young warrior nearly fell over in shock. "Commander!" Shiva stared at him, clearly just as surprised. "Loran?" The soldier dropped his weapon completely. "I thought you were dead." Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. "See?" he muttered. "This is exactly why I don't like running into people's coworkers." Loran looked between the two of them in disbelief. "You are with the human?" Shiva's voice remained calm. "He is treating my injuries." Loran turned slowly toward Marcus. "You saved our commander." Marcus shrugged. "I patched up a shoulder." The young soldier looked completely lost. "You are enemies." Marcus leaned against the wall. "Technically." Then he pointed toward Loran's bleeding leg. "But right now you're a patient." Loran looked down at the wound as if noticing it for the first time. Marcus gestured toward the second medical bed. "Sit." The soldier obeyed without thinking. Marcus grabbed another scanner and passed it over the leg. Shiva raised an eyebrow. "That sound does not inspire confidence." Marcus smirked. "Relax. I've treated worse injuries." Loran watched him nervously. "You help Varelians?" Marcus activated a sterilizer and began cleaning the wound. "I help bleeding people." Loran winced as the disinfectant foam hit the burn. "This is painful." Marcus grinned. "That means you're still alive." Shiva watched the interaction carefully. Her voice was quiet. "You treat us the same as humans." Marcus didn't look up. "Bleeding is a very universal language." Loran glanced between them. "This is strange." Marcus sealed the wound with a gel patch. "You have no idea." The young soldier hesitated. Then he asked the obvious question. "Why?" Marcus paused. For a moment the room grew quiet except for the faint humming of the medical equipment. Finally Marcus shrugged. "Because someone should." Shiva studied him carefully. Loran flexed his repaired leg slowly. The pain had already faded. He looked up at Marcus with confusion. "You saved both of us." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Well," he said casually, "I'm trying to keep the galaxy from completely losing its mind." Then he glanced at the surface monitor again. The scanner blinked. Marcus frowned. "That's odd." Shiva followed his gaze. "What is it?" Marcus pointed at the screen. 3 new signals had appeared above the ruins. "Moving fast. Military formation." Marcus sighed heavily. "Well," he reached for the rifle leaning against the wall. "This might be the part where my clinic receives some very aggressive visitors." Marcus stared at the scanner for several seconds, while the 3 signals moved steadily across the ruined plaza above them. The display showed neat triangular spacing, the sort of formation soldiers practiced endlessly during training. Whoever they were, they knew exactly how to move through hostile terrain. Marcus sighed. "Well," he said calmly, "that's not good." Loran sat up on the medical bed. "Human soldiers?" Marcus nodded. "Probably a reconnaissance patrol." Shiva's eyes narrowed slightly. "They will detect this shelter." "Eventually," Marcus replied. Loran instinctively reached for the weapon he had dropped earlier, but Marcus raised a hand. "Easy. They are your people," Loran said. Marcus shrugged. "Technically, but I'm fairly sure they'd arrest me for desertion before offering friendly conversation." Shiva watched the scanner carefully. "How long before they find us?" Marcus leaned closer to the display. "They're sweeping the area. Thermal scans, motion detection, the usual routine." He tapped the screen thoughtfully. "Maybe 15 minutes. 20 if the universe feels generous today." Loran stood up slowly, testing his repaired leg. "I will fight." Marcus looked at him. "With what?" Loran gestured toward the weapons rack. Marcus shook his head immediately. "Nope." Loran frowned. "You refuse to defend yourself?" Marcus walked over and grabbed a small metal case from a shelf. "I refuse to turn my clinic into a battlefield." Shiva crossed her arms slightly. "You believe negotiation is possible?" Marcus opened the case and pulled out several small devices. "Oh, absolutely not." Both aliens stared at him. Marcus smiled faintly. "But I do believe in creative problem solving." He began placing the devices along the corridor walls. Lauren watched curiously. What are those? Marcus attached one to a support beam. Signal distortion emitters. Shiva tilted her head. Explain. Marcus stepped back and activated the first unit. A faint ripple of blue light passed through the corridor and faded. These little beauties scramble most standard military scanners. Heat signatures, biosignals, electronic traces. Lauren blinked. You hide the shelter. Marcus nodded. Exactly. Shiva studied the device carefully. You prepared for this situation? Marcus chuckled. Let's just say I've had a few uninvited guests before. He moved toward a second console and activated another system. Small holographic panels lit up across the room. Surface cameras online, Marcus said. The display showed the ruined plaza above. 3 human soldiers moved cautiously through the debris, scanning the environment with handheld sensors. One of them stopped. Marcus leaned closer to the screen. That's Sergeant Hale, he muttered. Shiva looked at him. You know him. Marcus nodded. We served together. Lauren shifted uneasily. If he finds us, Marcus rubbed his temples. Yeah, that conversation would be awkward. On the screen, Hale knelt beside a cracked wall and scanned the ground. The scanner flickered. Marcus smiled slightly. Good. The distortion field is working. Shiva's sharp eyes studied the soldiers carefully. They are disciplined. Marcus nodded. Hale always was. The patrol slowly moved closer to the entrance of the underground shelter. Lauren's hand drifted toward a weapon again. Marcus noticed immediately. Don't. They are enemies. Marcus leaned back against the console. Right now they're curious. He pointed toward the screen. If they detect something unusual, they become suspicious. Shiva's voice was calm. And suspicious soldiers investigate. Marcus nodded. Exactly. On the monitor, one of the soldiers paused directly above the hidden entrance. The scanner beeped. Marcus stopped breathing for a moment. The soldier frowned and tapped his device again. The screen flickered with interference. He shook the scanner in annoyance. Marcus whispered, Come on, blame the equipment. The soldier looked toward Hale. Scanner malfunction. Hale walked over, glanced at the device, and shrugged. Marcus smiled slowly. Good man. The patrol continued moving away across the plaza. The signals on the underground monitor gradually faded. Only when the scanner finally showed empty ruins did Marcus exhale. Well, he said, that was unpleasantly exciting. Lauren looked amazed. You fooled them. Marcus stretched his arms lazily. I prefer the term strategically misled. Shiva studied him quietly. You protected us. Marcus walked over to the medical table and sat down. I protected my patients. Lauren shook his head slowly. You could have surrendered us. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And ruined my clinic's reputation? Absolutely not. For a moment the room was quiet except for the humming machines. Then Shiva spoke again. You risk much for strangers. Marcus looked at her. You're not strangers anymore. Lauren frowned. What are we? Marcus leaned back in his chair. Complicated house guests. Shiva almost smiled. Marcus noticed. Careful, he said. If my patients start smiling, I'll have to raise my prices. The tension in the room eased slightly, but the surface scanner blinked again. Marcus glanced at it. Then he sighed. You know, he said, I really need to install a sign upstairs. Lauren looked confused. What sign? Marcus pointed upward. Please stop bringing the war to my front door. On the monitor, distant flashes of light appeared on the horizon. Orbital bombardment. The war was moving closer to Kareth again. Marcus watched the distant flashes on the monitor as the horizon of Kareth flickered like silent lightning. Orbital strikes rarely made sound from this distance, only brief pulses of light that reflected against the thick cloud layer above the ruined city. He leaned back in his chair and folded his arms. Well, he said calmly, that's never a good sign. Lauren moved closer to the display. Your fleet? Marcus tilted his head. Could be ours. Could be yours. Hard to tell these days. Everyone uses the same explosion colors. Shiva stood slowly from the surgical table. Her movements were careful, but the healing gel across her shoulder had already sealed most of the wound. You should rest, Marcus said without turning around. I have rested. Marcus glanced back at her. For 12 minutes. She ignored the comment and stepped beside him to study the screen. The flashes were becoming more frequent. Lauren's voice lowered. A new offensive. Marcus nodded slightly. Looks like someone decided the planet wasn't broken enough yet. He tapped a key on the console and pulled up a wider scan of the surrounding region. Multiple signals appeared across the grid. Dropships, armored units, drone swarms. Marcus sighed. Yep, that's a full operation. Lauren looked uneasy. If your army advances here, Marcus shrugged. My army stopped being my problem several months ago. Shiva's sharp eyes studied the tactical display carefully. Your shelter will not remain hidden if the battle reaches this district. Marcus nodded. That's correct. Lauren frowned. Then we must leave. Marcus looked at him as if the suggestion had personally offended him. Leave? Yes. Marcus gestured around the room. You mean abandon my clinic, my equipment, my extremely comfortable chairs? Lauren glanced at the metal chair beside the medical bed. That chair is bent. Marcus squinted at it. It has character. Shiva crossed her arms slightly. The soldier is correct. Marcus looked between them. So the official vote is evacuation? Lauren nodded. Yes. Marcus sighed dramatically. I hate moving. Shiva tilted her head. You dislike survival? I dislike packing. Marcus stood and walked toward a large storage locker near the wall. He opened it and pulled out a small metallic sphere about the size of a helmet. Lauren blinked. What is that? Marcus set the sphere on the table. This, he said proudly, is my emergency relocation system. Shiva looked unimpressed. It is a ball. Marcus pressed a small button. The sphere unfolded instantly into a floating holographic projector. A three-dimensional map of the underground transit network appeared above the table. Marcus pointed toward a section deep beneath the city. There. Lauren studied the projection. Tunnels. Marcus nodded. Old maglev routes, abandoned decades ago. No military interest, no patrols. Shiva examined the map carefully. You prepared a secondary shelter. Marcus shrugged. I like backup plans. Lauren raised an eyebrow. How many backup plans? Marcus thought for a moment. Several. Shiva glanced at him. You expected the war to reach this city. Marcus leaned against the table. War reaches everywhere eventually. The map shifted slightly as Marcus zoomed into a deeper section of the tunnels. There's an old maintenance station here, he said. Power grid still functional. Thick shielding from surface scans. Lauren nodded slowly. That location would be difficult to detect. Marcus smiled. That's the idea. Shiva looked at him carefully. You plan to continue your clinic there? Marcus folded his arms. Of course. Lauren frowned. You intend to keep helping both sides. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Someone should. Shiva studied him quietly for a long moment. Then she asked a question that seemed to have been waiting for days. You abandoned your army for this? Marcus looked at her. I abandoned my army because I got tired of people pretending war was the only solution. Lauren shook his head slowly. You risk execution if your command finds you. Marcus smiled faintly. I risk execution if I return to them. He glanced at the map again. So I chose the job with better working conditions. Shiva's expression softened slightly. Lauren pointed toward the map. How far is this new shelter? Marcus adjusted the projection. About 4 kilometers through the lower tunnels. Lauren's ears lifted slightly. With wounded commander. Marcus shrugged. Technically, she's healing. Shiva gave him a long look. I heard that. Marcus grinned. Good. That means the painkillers are working. The tension in the room eased slightly, but the distant flashes on the horizon grew brighter. Lauren looked back at the monitor. The battle moves closer. Marcus nodded. Which means it's time to relocate. He began packing instruments into the medical pack. Shiva watched him carefully. You do this alone? Marcus shrugged. Usually. Lauren stood up fully now, testing his repaired leg. It will be 3 of us this time. Marcus glanced at him. You're volunteering for moving duty? Yes. Marcus sighed. Well, welcome to the worst moving company in the galaxy. Shiva stepped toward the equipment rack and picked up a crate of medical supplies. Marcus blinked. You're helping too? She looked at him calmly. You saved my life. Marcus rubbed his forehead. Please don't make this emotional. I prefer sarcasm. But as the three of them began preparing for the journey into the underground tunnels, something strange settled in the quiet clinic beneath the ruins. For the first time since the war began, none of them were standing on opposite sides. They were simply walking in the same direction. Marcus sealed the last medical case with a quiet click and lifted the heavy pack onto his shoulders. The weight settled across his back like a familiar companion. Around him, the small clinic that had existed beneath the ruins for months now looked strangely empty. The beds were folded, the diagnostic equipment packed away, the humming machines powered down one by one. Lauren stood near the entrance ramp, holding a crate of surgical supplies while shifting his weight from foot to foot. You carry this equipment every time? He asked. Marcus nodded. Yep. That is inefficient. Marcus shrugged. True. But the galaxy stubbornly refuses to build hospitals exactly where I want them. Shiva stepped toward the control panel and glanced once more at the surface monitor. The ruined plaza above remained quiet for the moment, but the distant flashes on the horizon had grown brighter. Even from underground, they could feel the faint tremor of bombardment, shaking loose dust from the cracked ceiling. The battle is moving closer, she said. Marcus slung a smaller toolkit across his chest, which means we should probably stop sightseeing and start walking. Lauren looked toward the dark corridor that led deeper into the underground transit network. How stable are these tunnels? Marcus thought about that for a moment. Well, he said carefully, they haven't collapsed yet. That is not reassuring. Marcus gave him a friendly pat on the shoulder. Welcome to Frontier Infrastructure. He walked to the main power console and flipped the final switch. The lights dimmed slightly as the shelter shut down into standby mode. For a moment, Marcus stood quietly in the center of the room. Shiva noticed. You hesitate. Marcus exhaled slowly. Just saying goodbye to my office. Lauren frowned. This place was temporary. Marcus looked around the room one last time. Yeah. Then he turned toward the corridor. Let's move. The passage beyond the clinic sloped downward into darkness. Old transit lights flickered on automatically as Marcus activated the tunnel grid from his wrist console. A long-abandoned maglev track stretched ahead like a steel river disappearing into the earth. Their footsteps echoed softly through the tunnel. Lauren adjusted the crate in his arms. How far did you say this new shelter was? Marcus glanced at the map projected on his wrist display. 4 kilometers. Lauren groaned quietly. That is very far for a wounded soldier. Marcus looked back at him. You volunteered. Shiva walked calmly beside them, her long ears catching faint echoes from deeper within the tunnel. There is movement ahead, she said suddenly. Marcus stopped. Define movement. Mechanical. Marcus crouched and adjusted his scanner. A faint signal appeared on the display. He squinted at it. Oh! Lauren leaned closer. What is it? Marcus stood up again. Maintenance drones. Lauren blinked. That is acceptable. Marcus scratched his head. Mostly. Shiva looked at him. Mostly? Marcus pointed down the tunnel. These tunnels used to be part of an automated maglev system. The maintenance drones were designed to repair structural damage. That seems useful. Marcus nodded slowly. Until their command network collapsed during the war. Lauren frowned. What does that mean? Marcus started walking again. It means some of them got a little confused. Shiva raised an eyebrow. Define confused. Marcus grinned faintly. They occasionally mistake travelers for damaged infrastructure. Lauren stopped walking. They attack people? Marcus shrugged. Only if you stand still long enough. Lauren immediately began walking faster. Marcus chuckled quietly. After several minutes, the tunnel widened into a large underground junction where 3 tracks split into different directions. Rusted service platforms hung from the walls and broken cables swayed gently in the cool air. Marcus checked the map again. We take the left corridor. Shiva suddenly raised a hand. Wait. Marcus froze. What? She pointed toward the far end of the junction. A small metallic shape moved across the track. Then another, and another. Marcus squinted. Well, he said, that's unfortunate. Three maintenance drones hovered into view, their sensor arrays glowing faint blue. Their circular bodies rotated slowly as scanning beams swept across the tunnel. Lauren whispered, "They see us?" Marcus checked the scanner. "Not yet." One of the drones turned slightly. Its scanning beam drifted across the floor, then began moving toward them. Marcus sighed. "Okay." Lauren whispered urgently, "What do we do?" Marcus pointed calmly toward a narrow service tunnel along the wall. "We hide." The three of them slipped quietly into the side passage just as the drone's scanning beam swept across the junction. For several seconds, the mechanical humming grew louder. Lauren held his breath. Marcus leaned casually against the wall. "You know," he whispered, "I used to think war was the most dangerous part of my day." Shiva glanced at him. "And now?" Marcus nodded toward the drones hovering outside the passage. "Now it's janitorial robots." One of the drones suddenly emitted a sharp electronic tone. Marcus frowned. "That's new." Lauren looked terrified. "What does that mean?" Marcus checked the scanner again. Then he sighed. "It means they just upgraded us from potential debris to definite debris." The drones began turning toward the passage entrance. Marcus pushed himself away from the wall. "Well," he said calmly, "time to run." And deep beneath the ruined city of Kareth, the strange alliance between a human deserter, an alien commander, and a wounded soldier began sprinting down the dark tunnels, while three confused maintenance drones chased them with extremely enthusiastic repair protocols. Marcus ran. That fact alone would have been surprising to anyone who had watched him during the past few days, because Marcus normally moved through the world with the calm patience of someone who believed panic rarely improved a situation. But right now, three extremely determined maintenance drones were chasing them through a narrow service tunnel while emitting aggressive repair alarms. And even Marcus had decided this was a good moment for exercise. Behind him, Lauren's boots clanged against the metal walkway. "These machines are very persistent." Marcus glanced over his shoulder. "That's because they're union workers. They finish every repair job." Shiva ran beside him with remarkable balance despite her recently healed shoulder. "Your humor is poorly timed." Marcus pointed ahead. "Humor improves cardio." One of the drones behind them released a loud electronic buzz. A thin cutting beam flashed across the wall beside Marcus, slicing through a rusted pipe. Steam burst into the corridor. Marcus winced. "Okay, that one's a little rude." The tunnel curved sharply ahead. Marcus slowed slightly and checked the map on his wrist console. "Good news," he said. Lauren sounded breathless. "What?" Marcus pointed forward. "The maintenance station is just past this junction." They turned the corner and nearly collided with a massive steel door embedded in the rock wall. Ancient warning symbols flickered faintly above it. Marcus slapped his palm against the control panel. The door groaned open slowly. "Come on," he said. The three of them rushed inside just as the drones reached the junction behind them. Marcus hit another switch. The door slammed shut with a deep metallic thud. The humming outside continued for a few seconds as the drones scanned the barrier. Then the noise faded. Silence returned. Lauren leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "That was unpleasant." Marcus nodded. "Very enthusiastic janitors." Shiva stepped forward and examined the chamber. The maintenance station was larger than the previous shelter. Old generator cores hummed softly along the walls. Dust-covered workstations surrounded a central platform where a long-abandoned maglev train once rested. Marcus walked to the main console and activated the power grid. Lights flickered on across the chamber. The systems hummed to life. Marcus stretched his back. "Well," he said, "welcome to the new clinic." Lauren looked around in disbelief. "You truly planned this." Marcus shrugged. "Backup plans are a hobby." Shiva approached the console beside him. The soft light reflected across her calm expression. "Your previous shelter is lost now." Marcus nodded. "Probably. You do not regret helping us?" Marcus leaned against the console and folded his arms. "No." Lauren frowned. "You abandoned your army. You risk execution. You hide in tunnels with enemies." Marcus smiled faintly. "Former enemies." Shiva looked at him carefully. "You could have lived safely if you had followed orders." Marcus considered that for a moment. Then he looked at both of them. I followed my conscience instead. The room grew quiet. Outside the station, distant vibrations rolled through the earth as the battle above Kareth continued. Shiva stepped closer to the central platform and rested her hand on the metal railing. For my entire life, she said slowly, I believed loyalty meant obeying command. Marcus tilted his head. And now? She looked toward the tunnel entrance where the darkness stretched back toward the ruined city. Now I see that loyalty can also mean protecting life. Lauren nodded quietly. I once believed humans were only enemies. Marcus raised an eyebrow. And now? Lauren glanced at him. Now I believe humans are confusing. Marcus laughed. That's fair. He walked over to a storage locker and began unpacking medical equipment. Surgical lights activated. Diagnostic scanners powered on. Within minutes, the empty maintenance station slowly transformed into another small clinic. Shiva watched the process carefully. You will continue helping wounded soldiers from both sides. Marcus nodded. Someone should. Lauren looked thoughtful. I will remain. Marcus glanced up. Volunteer number 2? Lauren nodded firmly. I was trained as a field medic before the war. Marcus grinned. See? The worst clinic in the galaxy is expanding. Shiva walked toward the medical table and rested her hand gently against the metal surface. You saved my life, she said quietly. Marcus shrugged. You were bleeding on historical ruins. That's unacceptable. For the first time, Shiva allowed a small smile. Marcus noticed. Oh no, he said dramatically. My patients are smiling again. She looked at him calmly. You have changed more than you realize. Marcus paused. How so? You once followed orders in war. She gestured around the room. Now you create peace in the middle of it. Marcus scratched the back of his head. Well, I prefer fixing people to breaking them. Outside, the distant thunder of orbital fire slowly faded as the battle moved away from Kareth. Deep beneath the surface, inside an abandoned station forgotten by both armies, 3 unlikely survivors began building something small and quiet. A place where enemies could become patients, where soldiers could become healers, and where a human who once believed he had lost his place in the galaxy finally discovered that sometimes the most powerful rebellion was simply choosing to save lives instead of taking them.